Welcome back to the channel, Racer X here, and today I am back again with my buddies at Streetside Classics Tampa because I have a very special car that I want to show you today. This is a car that I actually owned 4 of back in the day. It's still one of the best cars in my mind that Chevy has ever made, and this one has some really cool mods done to it, so I'm really looking forward to doing this. Been waiting on this car to come into this dealership for a really long time. It's here, and today we're going to do the video. If you guys are new to my channel, please do me a big gigantic favor, hit subscribe, and off we go.
T-minus 15 seconds.
What other dealership can you come to where you see something like this right next to a C5 Z06? And then of course you've got an old school, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff here. Check this bad boy out, the old Chevy. And of course, then you've got a Hennessy HPE 650 right next to that. I did a review on that car. Over here, you've got old trucks, you've got a Plaid. I mean, everything under the sun they have here. I literally, every time I come here, I walk around for hours, and I would love to drive every single one of these. But the one I want to show you today is sitting right out there. So let's go. And there is the car that I wanted to show you. That is a 2002 C5 Z06 Corvette. What a special machine. I'm going to jump into all the cool features of this particular car. This one is highly modded, and let's take a little look at it. Even after 20 years, this car still looks absolutely amazing to me. Just hands down to the guys at Chevy that designed this particular car. Some very distinctive features of the Z06 over the base C5. You can see the wheels right here. Those are distinctive to the Z06. Of course, you got the Z06 badge right there on the side. And then of course, you get this for cooling the rear brakes. And that's how you can always tell the Z06s apart. And then of course, you have this roof line here, a little bit different than the standard. It just kind of comes almost straight down. They did have a fixed roof coupe or an FRC as well that looked like this, but didn't have the brakes and didn't have the upgraded engine, which we will talk about. But as I get around to the back side of this car, one of the most distinctive things about the C5, I just love the shape of the back of the C5, all the way back in 1997 when they came out with the C5 Corvette. I mean, geez, it just always looks so nice. You can see this particular one has Borla exhaust on it. We'll talk about the mods this car has as well. You get Nitto 555s on both the back and the front of this particular car. But I just wanted to give you a little walk around first, just to see what amazing lines this car has on it, really from every angle. Man, they did a good job with this. So yeah, Chevy introduced this car back in 1997, and it was a huge hit from the moment they presented it to us. 345 horsepower is what this standard C5 Corvette made. But their whole thing with the Z06 is they wanted to just go above and beyond with this car. A lot of extra special detail on this particular car to make it more appropriate for like the track-focused guy, right? The person that really wants to go to the extreme. The Z06 is what you wanted. And they introduced the Z06 back in 2000, and it made 385 horsepower, so well above what the standard C5 made. And then of course the following year they jumped up to 405 naturally aspirated horsepower. So let's take a look at the engine in this thing. So here is the engine in the C5 Z06 Corvette. And of course, we've got a lot of other stuff going on under the hood here as well to make this thing even more fun than it would be if it was just stock. 5.7 liter aluminum V8 LS6 engine, 405 horsepower is the stock number on this. So 55 more horsepower than the standard C5 Corvette. Had an upgraded cam in it, a couple other upgraded goodies, including some intake bits. And of course, this thing has a bunch of aftermarket stuff. As you can see, a Vortec supercharger sitting right here in the front. You've got a big old intercooler sitting right up here. You've got long tube headers. I believe those are 1 3/4 inch long tube headers. Might be kind of hard to see down there. A monster cam in this car as well. So this thing makes well north of 600 horsepower. So no longer are we naturally aspirated in this beast. And of course, my car, I had a Magnuson supercharger on with a hole actually cut in the hood, and it was polished. It stuck up through the hood. That was one of my favorite cars that I have ever owned. But a really neat setup on this car, big power, and get this, this car only weighs a shade over 3,000 pounds. So the C5 Z06 is incredibly light. It's like driving a go-kart with massive power under the hood. So believe it or not, this thing would actually give like Hellcat, Redeyes and stuff like that an absolute fit. Of course, we know this particular car only comes in a 6-speed manual. No automatics back in this day. It was all about the manuals, but that's part of what made this car so much fun. I wanted to give you just a really quick look at the cargo area in the C5 Z06. Of course, it's got this pretty little mat right here. I had one of these for my car as well. That is not a standard feature. But right back here, you do have a nice little area where you could possibly put a set of golf clubs or two, or possibly a suitcase or whatever. So you actually do have just a little bit of storage in here. You can see the aftermarket mat they have in here as well, among a couple other goodies. But you do have a little bit of space in the back of this car, which is kind of nice. Now, when you jump to the interior of the C5 Z06, you see this is actually a really nice car to sit in. You've got leather seating surfaces. Of course, there's your Z06 right there on the headrest. Very soft leather in this particular car. Analog gauges, as you would expect. As I mentioned, this car is 20 years old. This has an aftermarket shifter from LMR in it, but a very driver-centric cockpit in this particular car. And I really do like the feel of a driver-centric car. I mean, it just feels like the car really wraps around you. Of course, this is a 2-seater, so you've got a little bit of a cargo space right behind you, but not much in the Z06. So comfortable seating, window and door controls right where you would expect them to be. Your climate controls, radio controls, all that right here in the middle. And of course, I think you've even got an ashtray there. This was back in the day where they actually had those. A little bit of storage here in the middle, but a nice place to sit and do business in the Z06. I want to let you listen to this exhaust because, man, does it sound good with that supercharger, the headers, the cam, everything going on in this car. It just screams America, not only when it starts, but when you rev it. So take a quick listen to this. So a quick look at the seating position in the C5 Z06, distinctively Corvette, as you can see. I really do like the gauges in this car. Yeah, they're analog. Like I said, 20-year-old car. Your window and your door controls basically right where you would expect them to be. Right over here in the center, as I mentioned, this is a cockpit type feel, so very driver-centric. You've got your radio controls, obviously your climate controls here, the aftermarket shifter right here. Of course, right over here, you've got your e-brake. You are sitting fairly close to your passenger, but you do have some room to maneuver in this car. Of course, the back, this is only a 2-seater. They've got the car cover back there, as you can see. But it is a really nice place to sit and do business in this car. Quite comfortable to sit in this particular car. And this actually has heads-up display. You may or may not be able to see it right here, but the C5 Corvette is one of the first vehicles out there with the heads-up display from Shelby. So another neat feature. So if you talk about the numbers on the Z06, it's not super crazy by today's standards, but still somewhat impressive when you think about this being 20 years old. I mean, they really did design this car to be a track weapon that you could drive on the street. They did all sorts of things to kind of lighten the car. They even gave it thinner glass on the windshield. It has a lighter battery. There are numerous things that they did to this particular car, stiffer suspension, all sorts of stuff like that to give this more of a track focus. And yeah, it is a little bit stiffer ride than a standard C5 car, but I don't necessarily mind it. It just kind of reminds you that you're driving something that has a purpose, and it certainly does. Just listen to the cam. I don't know if you can pick it up on camera. Just, oh man, the cam in this thing sounds really good, and I can't wait to see what that supercharger sounds like under the hood. Like I said, the numbers on the stock car aren't super crazy. I mean, like 171 mile an hour, which is still really fast. That's the top speed. I think the quarter mile on this was somewhere in the low 12s, but once again, we're dealing with a manual, so it's not like we're dealing with a 10R80 10-speed or anything like that like we have in today's cars. But still pretty impressive, like 0 to 60 in 4 seconds flat. I mean, that is not shabby. Even by today's standards, it's not too bad. And the fact it's 20 years old is pretty cool. Yeah, driving this thing really reminds me of driving my old supercharged C5 Z06 back in the day. Oh man, it takes me back. Jeez, these cars are so good. Just listen to this. Oh, just... forget how light these cars are until you really get into the throttle. You let that centrifugal force supercharger really build some momentum, and then it's gone. It's almost like driving a turbo car, but like I said, it's like just so light. I mean, even 600 pounds lighter than my Mustang. It's just insane how light these cars are. A car like this gives you so much confidence when you drive it, just the way it takes corners and how tight the car feels. I mean, it's 90-degree corner right here. It's just no issue whatsoever. Come on out. Oh, crap. This joker is nasty fast. The supercharger under the hood of this thing sounds really good. Guys, I'm not lying. This thing is a freaking missile. I've forgotten how fast these supercharged C5s can be. Like I said, you know, it's so light. It's even lighter than the C6, even the C6 Z06 with the 427. Lighter than that, lighter than the C7s. I mean, they made this car incredibly light. So when you're taking corners, when you're going around just putting around in the thing, it's got good manners. Like I said, a little bit stiff in terms of the ride. But boy, once you let that supercharger kind of get some momentum going, it's just like, wow, a nice linear pull. But it just feels like this thing makes a zillion horsepower. So if you're rolling around in your Redeye and you happen to run into something like this, you might be in a world of hurt, because this thing is really quick. Now, they have really made some amazing Corvettes. Obviously, the C8, what a remarkable car. The C7 ZR1, what a freaking monster. Absolutely gorgeous car, really fast. But, you know, this still, in my mind, has to be in the running for the best Corvette that Chevy ever made. Naturally aspirated, the way the power comes on, even in the stock one, is just really, really good. The car feels very special to drive. I can't quit smiling. It's partly the ProCharger too. I mean, I should say the Vortec, but man, this car is really, really good. And like I said, it really does take me back. I feel like I'm sitting in the car I was sitting in 20 years ago, driving it around, that I just fell in love with. And still special, man, still special. This car is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely, absolutely love it. Good night. Oh, yes. It seems crazy to me, but for less than half the price of a Redeye, you could have something like this. And it is truly a driver's car. Not a lot of nannies on it or anything like that. It is a weapon, but it's a good weapon. So good. If I thought this car would benefit the channel, I would literally run inside and buy this car today. It is so good. Man, makes me really miss my old ones, but what do you do? And that about does it for my review of the supercharged C5 Z06 Corvette. So as if the Z06 wasn't cool enough, they threw a Vortec supercharger on this beast and a cam and all sorts of other goodies and made it even better. And this thing still gives all of the cars today, the fast cars of today, absolute fits. It still looks good doing it. That Millennium Yellow is something else. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think about the supercharged C5 in the comments down below, and I will catch you on the next one. So until then, Racer X.